Okay, so we are recording live. Welcome everybody to the first episode of Elevate Your Grind Under Quarantine. As you guys know, Cannabis Lab is a live events company. We do in-person networking events, in-person educational events, and unfortunately, right now, being we are located in South Florida, we're not going to be able to do that for a little bit until the regulations get lifted, until social distancing no longer needs to happen. But for now, we're going to do our part. But we still want to get you some great educational content. I made a post yesterday with the word edutainment in it. I think I might have made it up. I hope I did, and then credit to me. But we want to get you guys some entertainment that also educates you in the cannabis space as well. So check out the Cannabis Lab Facebook page and check out the Cannabis Lab Instagram. We're going to be, or not Instagram, sorry, LinkedIn. We're going to be putting out a lot of great digital content for you guys all to consume while you're self-quarantined at home. We've got a great guest for you today. She was one of the first people I met when I came to Cannabis Lab, at least in the Dade chapter. A person that I really enjoy talking to whenever I see her there, because she's extremely nice, extremely friendly, and one of the most well-educated people in the cannabis industry that I know. Between her and Ari Gersten, I don't look up cannabis news. I just talk to them once a month and get everything that I need to know for this podcast. So please welcome Karen Goldstein. Karen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. We're working from home now, so if we might hear some dogs barking in the background, might hear some babies crying, might hear my wife ask me what I'm doing. So this should be an interesting episode. So, Karen, you've been involved with NORML for how long?
Well, officially, we started our chapter in late 2008. We noticed there was a void in Florida for any kind of information. There was an older chapter, Florida NORML, that was pretty much inactive. They weren't really doing anything. They weren't responding to the phone or to emails. So we decided to create a chapter. Originally, we were NORML of South Florida. And when we got permission from the former chapter to become the state affiliate chapter, which is what we did. And in about, I think it was probably late 2009 or 2010, we became NORML of Florida.
Very cool. So about 2008, 2009, that's probably, so we're talking about 11, 12 years ago. How long had NORML been around before that? Because, I think we got our first real legal state. Was it 2010 that Denver did it? Or I'm sorry, Colorado legalized? Because so people
No,
understand real quick, and I don't mean to cut you off. NORML is the National Organization for Regulation of Marijuana Laws,
no,
right? No,
no,
I got that
almost.
completely wrong.
Close. Close, but no cigar. No, not completely. It's the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. We've
Close.
been around since 1970. NORML, the lawyers who started NORML were the first people to stand up publicly and say they smoke pot, and proud of it and ready to stand up for your rights and to, help re-legalize this plant. And that's our goal. That's what we've been doing.
So
We
almost
support
four.
we, we support the medical efforts, but we're not a medical organization.
So for almost 40 years before we had Colorado go legal, NORML had been around advocating for the plant. Obviously, I'm assuming, I don't want to say obviously, but I assume the goal was, like you said, the legalization of marijuana and to be regulated like any other regulated substance, alcohol, pharmaceuticals, what have you. What were some of the accomplishments, and if you know, that NORML had leading up to that Colorado legalization? Because 40 years is a long time where
50,
marijuana was still stigmatized and still completely illegal.
totally. Well, it's 50 years, first of all.
Well,
That's
50, yeah, till now, yeah.
that's a really long time. Um, I think just the normalization. I like to say that we've always talked about marijuana. We've always talked about legalization or re-legalization, but it's always kind of been in hushed tones. It's been whispered. It's been, people kind of wink at each other. And of course, 420 was a
Yep.
code, but now the conversation has gotten louder. The conversation has gotten to the point where people speak openly about it. even our Congress people, our representatives, our senators are starting to step up to bring legislation, not ours, of course, but federally, they're starting to step up to try to change the laws and bring legislation forward to help to make those reforms. And I think that NORML's existence for these past 50 years has been a driving force behind all of that.
Yeah, I think NORML is a great organization, and one of the reasons why I love you guys is we've had people on the show, Brady Cobb, for example, who's been very instrumental in helping the legalization effort. But let's be honest, and I'm sure Brady won't hide this, it's self-serving, right? He has a company, he's been a part of companies, and as he pushes that forward, he's going to benefit from it. I don't doubt that he's doing it for the reasons that he wants to help people as well too, but it's also tied to his pocket. You all are a nonprofit and you guys are just grassroots doing this because you love the plant. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct. I like to say that I have no other dog in this fight. I'm going to be 73 years old next month. I'm not planning to start a business. I'm not looking for a job. My goal is just to re-legalize this plant. That's my whole thing. There's no money in my future.
So
There's no
you
money in my present, and there's no money in my future. So I live on my Social Security, and this is what I do.
so you got involved about 12ish years ago, we'll call it. Was it just because were you retired and you were looking to get involved because you were passionate about it? What did you do before you got involved with NORML?
Well, oh gosh, a lot of things. I used to be a junior high school fine arts teacher. Um, I left teaching. My late husband and I moved to Hawaii for a while. Actually taught there for a while as well. Um, we moved back to the mainland. Had my daughter. Stayed home. My late husband was a fireman. I was able to stay at home. I did some work,
Mhm.
freelance work. But when my son was born, I I decided I needed to go back to work. So when he was old enough, I went back to school and became a hairdresser. I was a hairdresser for 26 years. It was the thing I always loved.
Uh-huh.
It was an art form for me. And but it gave me the opportunity to talk to people all day long. Um, I was petitioning with Puffum, which was the organization that precluded United for Care.
Oh, wow.
And I was petitioning with Puffum. I was one of the original assistant organizers with Puffum.
So you've been
Uh,
involved with this for a long time then.
well, Puffum started right around the time we started our NORML chapter. So
Mhm.
yes, we worked with Puffum. NORML helped to raise money. NORML helped collect petitions. And then when Puffum evolved into United for Care, we worked very closely with them. In fact, some of our board members were closely involved with United for Care. And, it's been a labor of love. It's just been something that I feel like has to be done. I went to college in the 60s, and I've always known the truth about marijuana. In the 60s, it was a thing that we did
So the thing,
without,
yeah.
too much concern. It was
See,
actually before the war on drugs. Having uh, the availability, the access to marijuana, and I still call it marijuana. Cannabis can be either marijuana or hemp,
yep.
and I feel like it's important to make that distinction when you're talking about this plant. So to me, it's marijuana.
Yeah, it's interesting what people call it. I like cannabis now just because I like to play the middle ground, right? And I think you and I have had that conversation. There's, unfortunately, there's still a stigma that exists. And weirdly, when you go through the cannabis industry to cannabis events, at least on the investment side, to me, it's weirdly still a stigma at a cannabis event, right? So I don't wear the leaf when I travel. I don't do that stuff, but I'm very open about my conversation with it. Clearly, you and I are recording this and putting it on the internet and talking about it. I've talked about my use and everything else on here. Surprised anyone who didn't know. Um, you know, So I do like the term cannabis, but it's always interesting to me to hear what people call it, whether it's marijuana, whether it's pot, whether it's weed, right? Because everybody kind of grew up with that term. So, um, you
I think
know,
it's all of those. I think it's all of those. But again, I think you need to, because of having legal hemp now, and hemp being also a part of the conversation, I think the distinction is important.
yeah,
Cannabis is the whole thing, the whole shebang. Marijuana is marijuana and hemp is hemp. So, you
no,
know,
and hemp's going to be a whole completely different beast that I think is going to revolutionize our country. But let's go back to you and what you're focused on. You know, one of the things I really love about this show and what I love about you is there's an entrepreneurial spirit to you. And telling me that you're a hairdresser because you did what you love, you got to talk to people was awesome. Because I feel like you're still doing that. You know, as someone who you said you're going to be 73. You're still out there hustling for normal. You're at every event. You take every advantage you can. You're a better networker than I am, you know, and you don't have to do this. You're getting no benefit from it. So I love, so fast
oh,
forward.
I am getting benefit from it. I'm hoping to change the law. That's the benefit.
Makes sense. No, and it's a great benefit that we all benefit from. And I know that you and I had a conversation. I think it's incredible that in, you know, 2020 or 2019, we're able to walk into it. You know, it is medical, but you're still able to walk into a dispensary in our home state and purchase marijuana at a cash register and walk out with it in a bag and drive it home and not have to worry about getting pulled over. It's, you know, you guys have done some incredible things. Um, so talk to me, we go back to 2008, 2009 when you guys formed the chapter. What were the early days of NORML like? We had Eric Stevens on last week. I don't know if he got involved with you guys early, but I know he was helping with the legalization efforts. Eric is a very big friend of Cannabis Lab. You're on the DADE board as well, a big help to Cannabis Lab. Talk to me about what those early days looked like.
Eric actually is one of our board members and has been since the beginning.
Oh, wow.
He was a kid. He was so cute, and uh, again, mostly what we were focused on at that point was the medical marijuana petition that started as Puffum and ultimately became the United for Care petition. In order to be able to help, we were fundraising,
Hmm.
for United for Care. We donated money. I donated a laptop to their office. Um, did what we could, got the word out, certainly encouraged people to support the petition. We became, as an organization, we became registrars, which means we can register people to vote in Florida. Not everyone can do that. You have to be a registrar in order
Okay.
to get those forms completed. And by
So,
doing that, we were able to broaden the conversation
so you
from
were giving
just
people no excuses then. It was, oh, I'm not registered
absolute.
to vote. Oh, yeah, you are. Here, fill this out.
Sure, we still are. We still do that. When we table at events, we still register voters. When we work with Regulate Florida, which I'm the vice chairman of
Uh-huh.
Regulate Florida, uh, and we're petitioning for Regulate Florida, we register voters for the same reason. Oh, I can't sign your petition. I'm not registered to vote. So I got an interesting phone call on election day on Tuesday.
Hmm.
A man, 63 years old, had never voted before.
Wow.
And he reached out to me a couple of months ago, just wanted to meet. We met, had coffee. And that day, I changed his life, he says. Number one, he signed up for computer classes at the library because he was computer illiterate. And number two, he registered to vote.
That
Well, on election day, he called me and he was so proud that he had voted and he wanted to thank me for making him do that. And that gives me a great feeling. That's one of the other reasons I do this, because people do get back to me. I do get feedback on some of the advice I've given or the information I've shared that encourages people to move forward.
Well, the awesome thing about that is you might be registering people to get them to sign the petition and everything else, but at the end of the day, they're still registered voters now. And I mean, that's a
Right.
huge push across the country just to get people to register. You've got a ton of celebrities that are out there pushing for that. So not only are you guys advancing the agenda of we'll call it adult use marijuana, I guess that's the politically correct term these days, but you're also pushing the voting agenda too, which, you know, once you get somebody, it's almost the needle in the arm. Hey, this is the issue that we're on. And then all of a sudden they're going to look and see another issue they care about. Well, I'm registered to vote. Let me go do something about that. So I think what you
Right.
guys are doing is incredible. You had mentioned regulate Florida in there too. So obviously we'd focus on normal. You're wearing the normal shirt. Talk to us. What's the distinction between normal and regulate Florida right
Regulate Florida is a political committee, and our goal is to bring, as you said, adult use marijuana to Florida. We have a petition to regulate marijuana like alcohol,
now?
which primarily means that, like alcohol, you can walk into a store, show your ID, buy what you want, and leave with it. It also, like alcohol, allows for home cultivation. Alcohol, as you know, allows for a certain amount of home brewing and
Mm-hmm.
wine making. And so this would allow for a limited number of plants per adult in the household. It affords employee protections. People who are legal marijuana users, whether it's through adult use or medical use, would not be subject to, you know, being fired at work, if long as they're not impaired at work. So, you know, that's what Regulate Florida is doing. And we failed to make the ballot for 2020, primarily for lack of funding. Um,
So this was
but
this.
getting on the ballot in Florida is difficult. Aside from the massive number of petitions we need to collect, we need to go through a Supreme Court review process, which is, we're waiting for the results of that right now. We were told, we were assured that if we passed Supreme Court review, that we would be funded. So we're just waiting for that information from the Supreme Court, the Florida Supreme Court.
So that the goal was to get that on the ballot for this year, correct? And that was the one that was kind of competing with Make It Legal Florida, if I remember correctly, or no? Am I?
Well,
So
we're
Make It
not
Legal Florida was
competing with
sponsored by
anyone.
MedMen. This is where I usually ask you all the questions and you correct me on everything.
So yes, MedMen and Certera were primarily funding the Make It Legal Florida petition, but just to set the record straight, none of the petitions are competing with each other. There's no reason that you can't sign all of the petitions that are out there. There's another adult use petition. There's a petition to allow for patients to grow. There was the Make It Legal Florida petition. There was our petition, probably some others. And you can sign them all. You can even vote for them all. And in case of Regulate Florida and Make It Legal Florida, if both had gotten on the ballot and if both had passed, it kind of would have almost been the best of all worlds, because their petition allowed for the current MMTCs to cultivate and distribute, which would have immediately opened up the market, where
Yeah.
our petition would then additionally allow for home cultivation and independent growers and independent retailers and independent processors. So it would have been, in a sense, really, as I said, a great confluence of petitions. Of course, we believe that ours serves the people more than it does the industry. The Make It Legal Florida petition was industry driven and benefited the existing structure, where ours broke up the vertical system, which is what we now have, and
Mm-hmm.
would allow, as I said, for independent industry in Florida.
So I know there's a huge push to break up vertical integration here, and I agree with it. I think that you know, that's exactly what our industry needs, or at the very least, they need to have exponentially more licenses so that you can have a smaller vertically integrated company that just focuses on Miami or just focuses on Tampa or Pensacola or what have you, right? You know, they have that in Colorado, they have that elsewhere, but we're in a state right now where we have 22 licenses with 15 operational. So, you know, licenses we're reselling for ridiculous amounts of money, $40 million. You know, I can see what you're saying with, if Make It Legal Florida happened, at least we would have recreational, but the fight wouldn't be over. We'd still have to reform the industry itself. Whereas if Regulate Florida passed, it was okay, it's going to take a little bit